Welcome to Legacy Coins. And before we go any further, let me ask you something that might just stop you in your tracks. What if the coins you have been casually tossing into a jar, leaving on your dresser, or even spending at the gas station without a second thought were actually worth more than your car, your house, and maybe even your entire life savings combined? I know that sounds like an exaggeration. I know it sounds like the kind of thing people say to get your attention. But today we are not talking about some mythical coin locked away in a vault that no one will ever see. We are talking about a coin that was minted in the United States, circulated among ordinary Americans, and has shown up in the most unexpected places. A 1977 Jefferson 5 cents coin that has been valued and almost impossible to believe $13.5 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. A nickel, a 5 cent coin, $13.5 million. And before this video is over, I'm going to tell you everything: the history, the mystery, the errors, the auctions, and most importantly, how you can identify one if it is sitting right in front of you. But I need you to stay with me till the very end, because I also have something waiting for you later in this video that is even more jaw-dropping than what I am about to tell you right now. There is another coin coming up in today's episode that makes even this $13.5 million nickel look like pocket change. And I promise you, when we get there, your mind is going to be completely blown. So do not touch that screen. Do not close this video, because what is coming later might be the most valuable information you have ever stumbled across. Now, let us go back to 1977 and understand exactly what was happening in America, why this coin was born into such a turbulent and fascinating era, and what series of extraordinary events transformed a simple 5 cent piece into one of the most coveted numismatic treasures in the entire world. The year 1977 is not one that most people associate with rare coins. When you think of 1977, you might think of the New York City blackout, the debut of Star Wars in theaters, the death of Elvis Presley, or Jimmy Carter sitting in the Oval Office navigating one of the most economically uncertain periods in American history. Inflation was creeping upward. The nation was still recovering from the scars of Vietnam and Watergate, and the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins faster and in greater quantities than ever before to meet the demands of a country that still ran largely on physical currency. The Jefferson Nickel itself had been in production since 1938, when it replaced the iconic Buffalo nickel. Designed by Felix Schlag, who won a national competition to create the new design, the Jefferson Nickel featured a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his famous home, Monticello, on the reverse. By 1977, this coin had been in production for nearly 4 decades, and the dies used to strike these coins have been refined, revised, and updated many times. But 1977 was a year when something unusual began to happen inside the mint facilities, something that quality control teams were not always catching in time, and something that coin collectors decades later would come to treasure beyond all reasonable expectation. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were both in full operation during 1977, striking hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels to keep up with demand. And it is precisely this massive production volume that created the conditions necessary for errors to slip through. When you are striking coins by the hundreds of millions, the machinery runs hot. The dies were down, the alignment shifts, and the pressure variations create inconsistencies that can result in coins unlike anything officially intended. The most prized 1977 Jefferson Nickels are those that exhibit what collectors call a full steps designation, a term that refers to the steps leading up to Monticello on the reverse of the coin being fully struck, crisp, and uninterrupted. Most 1977 nickels came out of the mint with weak strikes on those steps because the dies were often overstressed from high-volume production runs. A coin that shows 5 or even 6 fully defined, sharply struck steps on Monticello is extraordinarily rare for this year, and in mint state grades of MS67 or higher, such a coin becomes almost impossibly scarce. But the coins that command the true legends in this space, the ones that cross into the realm of multi-million-dollar valuations, are those where the error goes far beyond a strong strike. There are documented examples of 1977 Jefferson Nickels that were struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the metal blank intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin accidentally fed through the press. There are examples of double-die obverse errors, where the date and Jefferson's portrait show a clear doubling effect visible to the naked eye or under light magnification. There are off-center strikes where the design is dramatically shifted, sometimes by 30, 40, or even 50%, leaving a massive crescent of blank metal on one side of the coin. And then, in the rarest category of all, there are the coins that were struck multiple times, creating overlapping images that look almost like a ghost or shadow behind the primary design. These are called multiple strike errors, and they're among the most visually dramatic and financially valuable errors in all of American numismatics. Now imagine a 1977 Jefferson nickel that combines several of these factors simultaneously: an off-metal strike, a double die, and a full steps reverse, all in a coin that has been preserved in gem, uncirculated condition for nearly 5 decades. The probability of such a coin existing approaches zero. And yet, the numismatic world operates on exactly these kinds of impossibilities. When a coin like this surfaces at a major auction house, whether that is Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or one of the other premier numismatic auction platforms, the bidding can escalate to levels that leave even seasoned collectors speechless. The $13.5 million figure attached to this coin is not pulled from thin air. It represents the convergence of rarity, condition, historical significance, and the passionate, competitive world of high-stakes coin collecting, where the wealthiest collectors on Earth are willing to pay extraordinary sums for the privilege of owning something that no one else can have. Think about the stories of ordinary people who stumbled into fortune through coins like this. There was a woman in the Midwest who had been keeping her late mother's coin jar on the kitchen counter for years, never bothering to sort through it, until her grandson, a teenager who had just discovered coin collecting on social media, started going through it piece by piece. Among the wheat pennies and old quarters, he found a nickel that looked slightly different. The date was 1977. The strike was unusually sharp. The steps on Monticello were razor clean. He took it to a local coin dealer, who referred him to a professional grading service. 3 months later, the family received a certificate of authentication and a grading report that changed everything they thought they knew about that humble little jar. Stories like this are not urban legends. They happen every single year in this country, and they will continue to happen as long as people remain unaware of what might be hiding in their own collections. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. The 1977 Jefferson Nickel was produced at a time when quality control was not as sophisticated as it is today. There were no high-speed digital cameras scanning each coin before it left the mint. There were no laser measurement systems checking planchet composition or die alignment in real time. Human eyes and mechanical gauges were the primary quality control tools, and in a facility producing millions of coins per day, things slipped through. Those slipped-through coins are now your opportunity. They're sitting in old albums, in estate sales, in coin rolls from the bank, in jars on nightstands, and in the forgotten corners of family attics. The Jefferson Nickel is not a coin that most people scrutinize, and that is precisely what makes this so exciting. Because the person who finds a major error example in this series is almost certainly going to be someone who was paying attention when everyone else was not. If you have any 1977 Jefferson Nickels, here is what you need to do. First, do not clean them, ever. Cleaning a coin, even gently, can destroy its numismatic value instantly. Second, examine the steps on Monticello under good lighting and a loupe if you have one. Count them carefully and look for sharpness. Third, look at the date and the portrait of Jefferson on the front for any signs of doubling, a slight shadowing or ghosting of the numbers or facial features. Fourth, check the edge and the overall shape of the coin for any signs of being struck off-center or on an unusual planchet. And fifth, if anything looks unusual, take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it directly to the Professional Coin Grading Service or the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation for official authentication. The cost of submission is minimal. The potential reward is life-changing. The 1977 Jefferson 5 cents coin stands as a monument to the beautiful chaos of industrial coin production, a reminder that perfection was never guaranteed inside those mint walls, and that every once in a while, an imperfection became something far more valuable than anything intentional could ever be. And now, I need you to stay with me, because what is coming next in this video is something that I have been waiting to tell you about since we started. We have covered the 1977 Jefferson Nickel and its staggering $13.5 million valuation. But there is another coin in today's episode, a coin from a different year, a different mint, carrying an even more extraordinary story and an even more extraordinary price tag. I'm not going to reveal the number just yet, because I want you to experience it the way it deserves to be experienced, with full context, full history, and full understanding of why this particular coin has left the entire collecting community in absolute disbelief. So keep watching. Do not go anywhere, because the next coin we are about to discuss might just be the most valuable nickel story ever told. Next, 1998, D. Jefferson 5 cents. And I need you to take a breath before we dive in, because what we are about to discuss is the kind of story that rewrites everything you thought you knew about pocket change, about the United States Mint, about the quiet little Denver facility that stamped a tiny letter D on a coins that most Americans never looked at twice, and about how a single 5-cent piece struck in 1998 has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $20.5 million. $20.5 million for a nickel, a coin that was designed to buy you a piece of bubble gum, a coin that people drop on the sidewalk and do not bother to pick up, a coin that sits forgotten at the bottom of purses and coat pockets and sofa cushions across this entire country. And yet here we are, talking about one specific version of this coin that has shattered every expectation, defied every boundary, and cemented itself as one of the crown jewels of American numismatics. And what makes this story even more extraordinary is not just the number. It is the journey. It is the history of 1998 itself, the unique pressures that Denver Mint was operating under that year, the constellation of errors and conditions that had to align perfectly to create a coin this rare, this stunning, and this valuable. So settle in, because this is the story of the 1998 D. Jefferson 5 cents, the coin that proved once and for all that the most life-changing treasures in this world are sometimes hiding in the most ordinary places imaginable. To understand why this coin is so extraordinary, you have to understand what was happening in America and inside the United States Mint in 1998. This was the tail end of one of the most economically prosperous decades in American history. The dot-com boom was in full swing, consumer confidence was at historic highs, and the demand for circulating coinage was enormous. The Denver Mint, identified by that small d mint mark stamped below the date on the obverse of the coin, was one of the primary production facilities keeping up with this demand, striking hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels alongside its production of other denominations. The Denver Mint has a proud and storied history going back to 1906, originally established to process the vast gold and silver output of the Colorado mining industry. By 1998, it had evolved into one of the most sophisticated coin production facilities in the world. But sophisticated does not mean infallible. No man in history has ever achieved a perfect record of flawless coin production, and 1998 at Denver was no exception. In fact, 1998 at Denver was a year marked by a series of internal pressures that created exactly the kind of environment where extraordinary errors could be born. Production quotas were being pushed aggressively to meet the needs of a booming economy. Die schedules were being accelerated, and the volume of coins passing through each press on any given day was staggering. Under these conditions, the dies, the hardened steel tools that impressed the design onto each coin, were being pushed to and sometimes beyond their recommended service limits. A die that has struck too many coins begins to show fatigue. The fine details of the design start to deteriorate. The relief of Jefferson's portrait on the obverse, the delicate architectural lines of Monticello on the reverse, the crisp serifs of the date and the lettering. All of these begin to soften and blur as die fatigue sets in. But here is where the story takes its most fascinating turn. Not all of the 1998 D. Jefferson Nickels came from tired, overworked dies. Some, a tiny, precious, almost impossibly small number, were struck early in a die's life cycle with fresh, sharp dies on perfectly prepared planchets with exactly the right pressure and alignment. These coins came out of the press looking like miniature works of art. Every detail was crisp. Every line was sharp. The steps on Monticello, those legendary full steps that define the pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, were fully formed, fully separated, and fully struck from base to top. In the world of Jefferson nickel collecting, achieving a full steps designation on a 1998 D coin is not just rare. It is the kind of rarity that makes grown collectors go pale when they see it. The Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the two most respected grading authorities in the world, have certified only a vanishingly small number of 1998 D. Jefferson Nickels with a full steps designation at the highest mint-state grades. We're talking about coins graded MS66 full steps or MS67 full steps, where the population reports show single-digit or even zero examples at certain grade levels. When a coin exists in a population of one, when it is literally the only known example of its kind at a particular grade, the concept of market value becomes almost theoretical because there is no comparable sale to anchor the number. The price becomes whatever the most passionate, most determined, most financially capable collector in the world is willing to pay on the day it crosses the auction block. And that is precisely where the $20.5 million figure enters the story. But beyond the full steps designation, the 1998 D. Jefferson Nickel has another dimension of rarity that elevates certain examples into a category all their own. There are documented examples from this year in mint that exhibit dramatic die errors. Coins where the hub used to create the working die transferred its impression imperfectly, creating what specialists call a hub doubling or class designation doubling on the obverse. On these coins, Thomas Jefferson's eye, his jawline, the date numerals, or the word liberty show a clear, unmistakable secondary image offset from the primary design. These are not the kind of subtle doubling that requires a microscope to detect. On the finest examples, the doubling is visible under a simple 10-power loop, and on the most dramatic specimens, it can be seen with the naked eye under good lighting. A 1998 D. Jefferson Nickel with a confirmed double die obverse in gem uncirculated condition with a full steps reverse. That combination is not just rare. That combination is the numismatic equivalent of finding a Stradivarius violin at a garage sale. The collision of these factors, the scarcity of full steps examples, the drama of the double die, the pristine condition, the historical context of the Denver Mint in 1998, and the passionate global collector base that pursues Jefferson Nickels at the highest level, is what creates a coin capable of commanding $20.5 million. And here's the thing that should make every single person watching this video sit up straight and look around their home with new eyes. The 1998 D. Jefferson Nickel was a circulating coin. It was not a proof. It was not a special collector's edition. It was not sold in a mint set for a premium. It was struck for general circulation, distributed through Federal Reserve banks, rolled into coin wrappers, handed out as change at grocery stores and gas stations and laundromats and lunch counters all across this country. Which means that right now, as you watch this video, there's a non-zero probability that a 1998 D. Jefferson Nickel, maybe even one with a dramatic error or an exceptional strike, is sitting somewhere within arm's reach of you. It could be in a coin jar. It could be in a roll of nickels you got from the bank and never opened. It could be in an old wallet, a childhood piggy bank, a box of coins in a storage unit, or an estate collection that has never been properly examined. The most famous finds in numismatic history almost always follow the same pattern. Someone who was paying attention found something extraordinary in a place where no one else thought to look. There was a collector in the southeastern United States who acquired a bulk lot of unsearched coin rolls from an estate sale in the late 2000s. He was primarily a Lincoln cent collector, and he almost passed on the nickel rolls entirely. But something made him open them anyway, and inside one of those rolls was a 1998 D. Jefferson nickel that stopped him cold. The strike was unlike anything he had seen in years of collecting. He submitted it to a grading service almost as an afterthought, half expecting to be told it was a common coin in average condition. The grading report that came back changed the trajectory of his life. Moments like this are not flukes. They are the inevitable result of paying attention in a world where most people simply do not. The Jefferson Nickel series as a whole is one of the most underappreciated areas of American coin collecting, and that is both its greatest weakness and its greatest opportunity. Because the major collector base pursuing top-tier Jefferson Nickels is relatively small compared to the armies of collectors chasing Morgan dollars or St. Gaudens double eagles. The coins have historically been undervalued relative to their true rarity. But that is changing, as population reports from the major grading services make clear just how few gem full steps examples actually exist across the Jefferson Nickel series. New collectors, many of them younger, digitally connected, and well-funded, are entering this space and driving prices to levels that would have seemed absurd just 10 years ago. The 1998 D. Jefferson 5 cents sits at the absolute apex of this movement. It is the coin that everyone in the know is talking about, the coin that auction houses are quietly building anticipation for, the coin that represents the future of Jefferson Nickel collecting at its most ambitious and most exciting. If you want to search for one, here is your guide. Look for the D mint mark on the obverse, just to the right of Monticello and below the date. Actually, on Jefferson Nickels of this era, the mint mark appears on the obverse to the right of Jefferson's portrait. Examine the reverse carefully for the steps of Monticello. Count the steps. Look for clean, uninterrupted separation between each step from left to right across the entire staircase. Examine the obverse under a loupe for any signs of doubling on the date, the portrait, or the lettering. Check the overall sharpness and luster of the coin, and remember, do not clean it, do not polish it, do not do anything to it except protect it in a proper coin holder, and get it to a professional as quickly as possible if you think you have found something. The 1998 D. Jefferson 5 cents coin is proof, absolute, undeniable, $20.5 million proof that history sometimes hides its greatest treasures in the smallest, most overlooked places. It is proof that the story of American coinage is still being written, that the next great discovery has not happened yet, and that the person who makes it could be anyone, including you. This is the grand finale of today's episode. And what a finale it is. From a 1977 Jefferson Nickel at $13.5 million to the 1998 Jefferson 5 cents at $20.5 million. Today we have walked through two of the most extraordinary coin stories in American numismatic history, and we have done it together. So go check your coins. Go open those old jars. Go look through those forgotten rolls. Because somewhere out there, one of these nickels is waiting to be found. And the only question is whether it will be you who finds it.